Hi guys, welcome back to your virtual math class. Today we are going to be doing questions 10 through 13 in the multiple choice packet and question 3 in the short answer packet. So make sure you have those ready to go. Okay, question number 10. I'm going to talk to you guys more about a strategy for this one as opposed to how you would solve it if it was a part 2 question. Since it's multiple choice, we have a little bit more options. It says, which pair of equations would have -1, 2 as a solution? Now remember that -1 represents your x value and 2 would represent your y. If you wanted to do this like the long way, you would plug -1 in for x and 2 in for y and see if it worked out. And it would have to work out for both equations. So you would do that 2 times for both equations. And if you were checking all of these, you'd have to do that then 8 times, okay? I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of a faster way how you can use your calculator to check. So if -1, 2 is a solution to both of these equations, when you plug them in your calculator, you'll see that point in the table. And what's nice about these is that most of these are already solved for y, so it should be quick. So I'll show you the strategy right now. For A, you'd go into your y equals, you'd plug in x plus 3 into y1, and then 2 to the x power. I'm gonna show you how I plug that in so that you guys do this correctly. You would plug in the 2 caret x, okay? Like that. And then you're gonna go to your table and you're checking to see if this is a point. So what I want my table to look like is this. y1, y2. What I want my table to look like is at where x is -1, I wanna see a 2 for my y1 and my y2. That shows that this is the point on both of those lines. So if you can see my table, -1, I have a 2 here, so it works for that equation, but not for that one. Not for my second one there. So this is no good. That's not an option. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the right one because for interest of time, you know, I'm trying to save you guys some time here. So let's check C in my calculator. So I'm gonna plug in x squared minus 3x minus 2 into my y1, and then my y2, I'm plugging in the linear 4x plus 6. And then I'm gonna check that table again, where x is -1, notice how I see a 2 and a 2, okay? So because they match, that means it's a point on both of those lines. That means they share that point, and that's the solution, okay? So the strategy there is your y1, y2, check table for point. And if you wanna draw what I have up here, that's what I'm looking for in the table, okay? All right, question number 11. 11 talks about, or shows a picture of a function. It says, we want to sketch the polynomial p of x as shown on the axes below. So here it is right here. Which equation could represent p of x? All right, so there's a couple of strategies I would use to do this one. I'm gonna show you 2 of them. The first strategy that I'm gonna use is I'm looking at the zeros, okay? Because I'm looking at these equations and they all seem to be in factored form, okay? So the zeros of this equation, where does it hit the x-axis? It hits where x is equal to -1 and where x is equal to +2. All right, and then, oh, this is a tricky one. Okay, I'm just looking at my options and realizing this might trick you a little bit. When it hits just, like when it just touches and doesn't cross through, it technically hits it twice. We call that a double root. So I'll show you how to write that. You have not learned how to do this in Algebra 1, so my next strategy will probably be even better. But remember how to go from your 0 or your root to your factor is you always have to switch the sign. So whatever it is down here, it's going to be opposite up here. It's going to be x plus 1. Because remember, then we set up the t-chart and then solve, and it's always opposite. I'm just doing it backwards now. And this would have been x, then it's +2, so I would write -2. Since it's a double root here, that actually would have been squared, okay? This is not a quadratic. Obviously, it's not like a U-shaped. It goes like this, so it's actually to the 3rd power, so that's why we have to square that. That is not something that we actually expected you to know for Algebra 1 at this time, but that would have been my equation. So my answer's A. Tricky how they had C as also an answer. If you didn't realize this, C is a quadratic, okay? So it doesn't obviously look like that. A is gonna be our answer, and I'm gonna show you using my next strategy how to check that. So my next strategy I'm gonna show you guys is P of X means Y equals, Y equals, Y equals, right? We've gotten the hang of that it all means Y equals. So I'm gonna clear out my Y equals and I'm gonna put my option A into Y equals. Parentheses, X plus 1, close your parentheses, X minus 2, close your parentheses and hit that squared button. I'm gonna just graph it so that I can see if it matches. Oh, all right, so for those of you who are following with me last time, your window's changed. So we wanna hit zoom 6 to get my window back, okay? Again, that's zoom 6. Okay, so then I'm gonna check carefully because they all kind of can look alike, but check to make sure the zeros match up. So I have one going through -1 and I have a double one or just like it bouncing off at 2. So this must be my function, okay? So that's how I know A is correct. The other way you can check is you can check to see if your zeros are what I said they were right here, X equals -1 and X equals 2. You can check that in your table. Second graph, where X is -1, I should see a 0 for Y, which I do. And then notice how where X is 2, I also see a 0 next to Y. So that makes it a 0, okay? So A is definitely my answer, and my strategy for that one, I would say plug into Y equals and check the graph. You can check the table too, but I like checking the graph best. But whatever strategy you like better. All right, question number 12. It says, which equation is equivalent to Y minus 34 equals, mine didn't copy very well, guys, so I tried to write over it very sloppily, sorry. X parentheses X minus 12. All right, this one is a bit tricky, and you're gonna see why in a second, okay? What your natural instinct probably is to do is to distribute, which I don't blame you, so X squared minus 12X, and that's all gonna be equal to, I'm dropping down this stuff over here, and then add 34 over. So your equation is then Y equals X squared minus 12X plus 34. And then you can see that A and B are in factored form. C and D are in vertex form. So they took this equation, completed the square to put it in vertex form, okay? My next thought process would be AM method, just to see if it's been factored, what multiplies to 34 and adds to -12. So my sign should be the same, both negative. So A is out, because there's a negative and a positive. B could be in, let's see, -17 times -2 does give me positive 34, but does it add to -12? No, that adds to 19, -19. So B is out. So you could keep going and complete the square, or you could use the strategy we talked about a few days ago, where you see the word equivalent, and you actually could have used this strategy right from the very beginning without doing any work. When you see this word equivalent, guys, you can use that Y1, Y2 strategy. So you can put this equation in Y1. You couldn't put this into Y1 because it's not solved for Y, but if you just added 34 over, you could put this equation into Y1. I'll highlight it in yellow. This X parentheses X minus 12 plus 34. You can just put what you see there. I'm gonna put this in because I cleaned it up a little bit and I just like the looks of that better. It's okay, either one, they're the same, okay? So you put your original in and then you put your two options in, okay? So well, let's put this one in first, see? I actually do not know what the right answer is for this one, so we're gonna figure it out together. But at least I eliminated a couple. So in my Y1, I'm putting my cleaned up version, this guy right here, X squared minus 12X plus 34, that's the original. And then I'm gonna put in my option, parentheses, X minus 6, close parentheses, squared plus 2. And we're checking the table to see if my Y values match. Do they match? They do not. So that means this is not my answer. So then D must be my answer, but we of course want to check that. And all it is a sign change. Just change that +2 to a -2. Check your table, and there we go, we have a match. Whoop, we have a match, okay? So that means these are equivalent. That's what that word told me, that I could put this into y1 and this into y2, and my y value should match because they're equivalent, okay? That same exact strategy will apply for question 13. Which expression is equivalent to that one, okay? There's that word again. Now, it's a possibility that there might be a couple of these that would have, since these are all factored, there's a couple ways to factor something where multiple answers will be equivalent. And if they want the completed factored form, you just have to be careful with that. Let's go ahead and factor this one. We'll do this one the long way, but it has the same strategy as this one, but we'll do it the long way. So this looks to be a dots, but remember the first question you always ask yourself when you factor is there G, C, F? And I was triggered to that, thinking about that, because look, I'm looking at all my options. They obviously have a GCF out front. So does 4 or 2 go into 36 and 100? And what's the largest one? Well, 4 goes into both of them. So you pull out a 4 first. And then what's left over when I divide both terms by 4 would be 9x squared minus 25. Okay? And then from here, okay, none of those answers match. So I got to keep going. That is a dots, what's in the parentheses. So my 4 just drops. And I do my 2 parentheses with 1 plus 1 minus. What times itself, or what's the square root of 9? 3 and 3. What times itself gives me x squared, x and x. And then what's the square root of 25, 5 and 5? So my answer is B. Okay? The way to check yourself, or the strategy here, would be to plug this into y1, your original, and your answer into y2, and your y values will match. Okay? So that's my strategy for both 12 and 13. Y1, Y2, Y values match. And you can draw an arrow. It's the same strategy, okay? All right, nice job with the multiple choice. I'm sure you guys are doing amazing over there. I just wish I could see you all, but this is the best we're gonna do for the time being. All right, so question number 3 in the short answer packet. Let me zoom out here. Okay, so it says what type of function is given in the table below, and then of course there's my spoiler alert, but pretend like we didn't read that. What type of function is that right there? Well, that's the square root function. And just so that we can remember what those look like, on page 1, you should have what the square root function looks like, and it looks like this, where it has a distinct start point and then an arrow going out in one direction. Remember, there's a really special way to graph these. Let's see if we can remember that. So, this just as a reminder, when graphing square root function, you must start at the point right after error. Okay, so that is what the special way is to graph this. Unless there's a domain restriction like this one, okay? So you guys haven't, at least Miss Specht and Miss May's students, haven't seen one like this where there's a domain restriction. All that's telling me, it's kind of nice. It's like a nice little hint here. It's telling me that when I go to grab my points from the table, just grab from where x is -2 all the way down to 7. So those are the points I'm grabbing, okay? So from -2, then -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, okay? So let's put this in our calculator. Go to your y equals and hit the square root button. Second x squared is where you're gonna find that square root. It's right there. So second square root, and it's x plus 2, and the plus 2 is underneath the radical, so you don't have to tab out. All right, so it should look like this. And then go to your table and find those points from -2 to 7. So you might be wondering, do I have to graph all these decimals? I would write them down just because there's not that many points that we have to graph. I'd write them down. You're not gonna necessarily get points off if you didn't graph some of the decimals, but you really, really have to make sure you graph from -2 and this point to 7 and like some in between. Okay, you can't just graph 2 points. So Definitely all the nice points, I would say. Let's see, 0, 1 point, I'm gonna round, 1.4, 1, 1.7, 2, 2, 3, 2.2, 4, whoopsie, 2.5, 5 looks to be 2.6, and then 6, 2.8. All right, let's go ahead and graph these guys. So, and remember, let's just take a quick look at our table. If I go up from -2, that's where I see my error. So I cannot have any points going in the left way direction towards any more negatives, right? That's gonna be where my point starts at -2, 0. But my points do continue after 7. Look at, they go on forever. So that's where my arrow is gonna be. So you'll see that as we graph. So -2, 0 over 1, 2, up or down 0. So there's my point, and I'm making it a very distinct point. And then I'm gonna plot -1, 1, 0, 1.4, so that's a little bit above there. 1, 1.7, that's getting close. 2, 2, 3, 2.2, 4, 2.5. I'm gonna stop talking because it's probably annoying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think I got all those right. All right, and remember with the square root function, you start at that first point and then just draw your arrow in that one direction, okay? And make sure you're labeling. And that's that. There's not even a question under there. All right, guys, thank you so much again for tuning in with me. You guys are doing amazing. I hope you're staying busy. I hope you're staying active. I hope you're being kind to the people that you're quarantined with. Okay, I know this is a tough time, but we will all get through it together. My next homework assignment to you is do something nice for somebody that you're in the same house with, okay? I know everyone can probably be getting on each other's nerves at this point. Trust me, I completely get that. But if you do something nice, it'll brighten up somebody else's day, okay? I look forward to seeing you guys soon. And of course, wits mail us for any questions, okay? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.